Basically, what I'm going to do is, I originally thought of doing your work, which I'm giving you, and prepare a PowerPoint presentation for all of you all. But I think that in the light of what Devesh and I think Shivani had said, will work has to be transferred to the people who are going to be impacted by whatever discussions we have today. Rather than me just show you what I think is right, it needs to come from your understanding of how the world of education, in terms of all the books, all the pedagogy, how does it translate into something which the children can be actively involved in and also learn from that entire process. So, before I go into the actual requirement of you to write, I'm just going to give you a very broad overview of what happens in Waldorf schools, very, very briefly from, let's say, grade 1 up to grade 8. In grade 1, I'm not sure how many of you all have an understanding of how the human being comes onto this earth, and I think most of you all will probably agree with me, and those who don't can just shut their minds off for the next 10, 20 seconds. We are all, we come out of a spiritual world, and we come out of a particular realm of existence which does not have a physical body. So we don't have ears and eyes, but we still exist in some form. Now, how that exists is a debate which I am not intending to go in. But when the child comes onto the earth, he gets a physical form. So if you look at the child's consciousness at that point in time, you will find that he is more oriented towards the spiritual world than oriented towards the normal laws that you and I are very comfortable with now after so many years of existence on the earth. So their ability to learn, their ability to understand, their ability to integrate with what they are seeing for the first time across maybe I don't know how many years, or I don't know how to even quantify that as a time period. But after a very, very long time in the spiritual world, they come here and they experience a lot of things which are very, very new to them. So what World of Education does is the teachers try to bring that consciousness which is now presented to the human world that we are comfortable with in a way that the child is extremely harmonious and is able to integrate and talk to you in a way where he or she doesn't feel the necessity to excarnate and think, why was I born? Why am I here? I should have stayed back in the spiritual world. So that is the picture which I want to give you. So what do the kindergarten teachers do in Waldorf schools is they don't teach you by telling you please do this or please do that. They don't tell you to learn the ABCs, the alphabet. They don't tell you how to, for example, cut an apple. What they do is they just stand there and do the activities. And these activities are extremely harmonious. The singing, the cutting the vegetables, the cooking or baking in the school, or the morning play, the songs they sing. Everything is done by them, and the children naturally follow. They feel that okay, this is something which I can associate myself with. I can begin my life in this kind of an environment in harmony, and I really like to be here. I don't want to even think about where I came from. So most of the learning is happening by imitation, and one of the things which I think I must have spoken to some of you all earlier is if you ask me, and if you have good kindergarten teachers who are able to understand this and also bring these processes into your children, I would probably pay them the highest among all the categories of teachers, high school teachers, even the professors in colleges, and the primary school teachers, the kindergarten teachers, as well as the parents, of course, who are also teachers at home, become the primary caregivers as well as educators to the children, which builds the foundation for what the child is going to be able to do in later life. So if the parents are extremely active, for example, then automatically the child will say, okay, I want to run with you, go for a marathon. Or if the parent is very good at painting, the child just looking at the parent will say, I want to learn. If they're good in music, good in math, good in sciences, it just happens naturally. You don't have to even think about it. The child is watching you, learning, absorbing everything, and trying to imitate the parent as well as the kindergarten teacher. So kindergarten teachers are there primarily because They are not only teaching them in terms of imitation, they're expecting the child to learn from, they're also going into a particular thing which I think is not focused on too much in the Waldorf environment as well as maybe the homeschoolers. They're teaching a process. Now, how does this process happen? So, for example, if you were to bake a cake in the kindergarten class, there are steps to it. There is step one, you bring the dough, you knead it, then after that you mix all the ingredients, you put in all the stuff, the child is watching you, and then you go on to the next step of making a nice dough, putting it inside the oven, setting the temperatures, and then allowing the cake to come out, then cool down, then cut it. You know, this entire process. It's the process which goes into the human body. And if these processes go into the human body in a way where you are not instructing them, but they are learning out of their own observation, then you are teaching them how to learn for life any subject, any whether they're wanting to become, do the triathlon, the Ironman, maybe learn to fly a plane or become the best engineer in the world or do whatever they want to do in life. It's those processes which are extremely important for the child. And these processes are enhanced by having a steady rhythm. When I mean a rhythm, I don't mean that you do exactly the same thing every day, but you have a nice rhythm which can change. It doesn't mean that on Mondays every day at 10 o'clock you have to do this, or Tuesdays you have to do that. But that rhythm on the first Monday, and maybe you have that rhythm on the second Monday, and the third Monday, and fourth Monday, should follow a pattern. These patterns go into the body of each child. And it's so important for teachers to be able to understand this. And if they are able to build that strong foundation for not only for themselves but definitely for the children, I can tell you primary school teaching and high school teaching is a cakewalk. You don't have to worry too much because the children automatically know instinctively that if they are capable of baking a cake, they are also capable of solving a math problem in later classes. It's just a process. What to do first, what to do second, third, fourth, fifth, and the processes are all built into their body. And when the etheric forces or the vital forces are released in later years, then all those methodologies just come to their mind. You could almost say it's like intuition, inspiration, all these standard words which you probably know. Their imagination is alive. They know how to solve a geometrical problem. They know how to maybe fix a watch. You should show them once. It all happens very, very naturally. You don't even have to do anything. So that's the kindergarten portion. So now when you go through from the kindergarten, if you come down to the level where these children are in grade 8, they've come out of the spiritual world and they're slowly incarnating into their bodies. If you trace that like a kind of a curve, grade 8, they are at the bottom. They're closest to the material world. They feel their bones. They feel the gravity in them. They feel kind of a little isolated from the spiritual world. They really can't connect there. And therefore, the high school teachers have the task of trying to take them back, but in a more conscious way. Rather than in something which was instinctive, now you have to connect back to all that is there in the spiritual world through the subjects we teach. All subjects from grade 8 onwards are oriented towards getting the child to be able to think. And when I use this word spiritual, it might sound a little not so acceptable by all of you all, but I'm sure everybody will accept that when you start to think, you are in a kind of a world which is not physical. You can't really put your thinking into three dimensions. You can put your thinking into some sort of a space which does not have dimensions. So what we in Waldorf schools do is we take this entire process of class 8 main lessons, class 9, 10, 11, 12 to a level where the child starts to think independently. And the other themes which I want to tell you about is basically in world of education, one of the fundamental things we try to do is educate the child towards freedom. It's a nice catchword, but how do we actually do it? That's one you must have seen in many of the websites. You've probably heard about these statements. How do we actually do it? And the way broadly, in broad strokes, to answer that question is you teach them artistry, which you all seem to be doing. And get them to paint, get them to make bags out of craft, you get them to think when they are solving a mathematical equation. You get them to observe in a physics or a chemistry lesson. You get them to play in the playgrounds where the bodies are actually developing in after puberty in a slightly different way. So you get them in different ways to acknowledge how important it is for the artistic element within themselves is comes out of them. And the way in which you would do it is include art into all the programs that you do. The songs that you just heard is a very nice artistic activity of the child to be able to connect with what he imagines to be true and beautiful and good. So, the artistic part of world of education, I think, is known by many of you all, but it's also a very practical education. And what do I mean by practical education is that you get the children to make things on their own, whether it's craft, whether it is music. When I say music, music can also be a practical one, not just in making from a physics perspective, for example, a small guitar or a xylophone or any string instrument, but it is also to write the song. What Hardik just said, I'm trying to get them to write their own songs, to write their own lyrics, to understand how musical notation is. That is also an artistic activity. Everything that you do has art in it, and it also has the practical aspect of being able to create something from nothing. There was no song before. Now I've got a script, I've got the lyrics, I have the notes, I can play it, and people like it. So that's a very practical, kind of orientation from what was in your mind as a thought. Now it's come into a practical form in a song that the children are singing, or it could be in drama. It can definitely be in physics and chemistry and all the other subjects. So it's a very practical education. The third thing, which I think you probably know, it's also a very moral education. What do we mean by that? Is that if you instruct children, and if you, in fact, you also must have experienced this, if you get instructions from your parents, and we've been brought up in that fashion. Our parents told us, our teachers told us, and we did it. Did we question? No. Most of the time we said they know better. And if we thought they didn't know better and they didn't like it, we would get the stick. But nowadays, of course, all that is not possible, at least among most of us that we experience in schools as parents, etc. So, the way in which you can get a certain sense of morality in the child is to allow them to think for themselves what is right and wrong. And in this process, they'll make mistakes. Mistakes are not a problem. Sometimes they take the wrong decision, that's fine. As long as you get them to understand that that's a wrong decision, and then do some course correction, whether it is in relationships, whether it's in academics, whether it is in making a particular project where they've gone wrong, doesn't matter. But the idea is to allow them to think on their own and develop the processes to think properly and correctly from a moral perspective. In that context, world of education is extremely good in getting these kind of qualities developed in children. So, practical education, artistic education, moral education, all this is there in all the main lesson books that you probably see here. It's there in the pedagogy, it's embedded in it. And the wonderful thing that Steiner has done is he's got these connected up to the consciousness of the children so very well that I can only give you examples from many schools and many parents and many interactions. But what you really need to understand is through the children you teach, because they are the ones, as a teacher, as a parent, you are experiencing. So when you see a wonderful moral quality where a student has stood up for his friend, and when somebody else was doing something which was incorrect, or for example, you see a child going and trying to help somebody who's in difficulties, or many of the other moral situations that you come across on a day-to-day basis, you can experience it for yourself. And I can assure you that if they've gone through all these lessons from grade 8 and upward, and of course from kindergarten and upward, but we are in high school now, they will definitely have these qualities and it will be very strong with them. There's nothing much you have to do. And I keep saying we as high school teachers think that we are teaching them. I don't teach these children. I just provide an environment, certain information is given, some questions they have, you answer them. they are involved in the lessons more than probably I have been instructing them. And the way in which to do that, of course, is a whole. I'm going to open it up for discussion and questions in a moment. You can then give me some ideas as to how you, as teachers, as parents, have incorporated this learning process or this methodology in your curriculum and your daily life. Uh, so, from grade 8, you're very much connected to the material world. You're completely disconnected from, you could call it the intellectual world or the spiritual world, and it's all about themselves. And from then on, what happens now, since we are in grade 9 and your children are going to step into the grade 9, there are some fundamental, words or questions which children of different age groups, different grades ask. In grade 9, you could put it around the word what. What is this? What does this mean? In grade 10, it becomes how do things work. In grade 11, it's more about why are we doing this. And in grade 12, which is about 17, 18 years, it's who am I? Why have I come onto this earth? Why do I need to exist at all here? And why do I have to go through all the dramas and trials and tribulations and the joys and the sadnesses in life? What did I do to be here? So these are the basic questions. Now, when you come to grade 9, the principal question beyond what is translated into the grade 9 student in the form of number one, what's happening within the body is there's huge changes. They're about 14, 15 years. Their psychology is definitely changing. Their physiology is changing. The boys' voices drop. The girls, develop their sexual organs develop, and all those kind of things are happening within them. What does it mean for their psychology? They are in confusion. They're absolutely running from one pole to the other, from light to dark. And you might not see it very starkly with the children you have, but I can assure you, if you have a broader sample, you have 30, 40 children, you will find all these qualities being presented by the students in your class. Your children may be, to some extent, modulated by the way in which you, as parents, have taught them, by the way in which the kind of lessons they are being taught are given to them, by the way in which the environment around them, for example, in Pune, is presented to them. So they might not be a very typical example of this polar opposites that I'm talking about, but it is there in them. And you will find these qualities come out when they are under stress. So if you really want to know who a person is, put that person under extreme stress, and then you will know his character. And same applies for the children. It applies for me, it applies for you, it applies for everybody. Our true characters come out only when we are in uncomfortable situations. So World of Education again, in a way, takes you through all the lessons which I'm about to go and show you on the screen, where some of these, what I would call controlled stress environments, are created within certain parameters for the children so they can exhibit their true characteristics. There's nothing wrong with being angry or selfish or unselfish or whatever, good, bad. It is good they experience these qualities and express them. The more you suppress them, is then what is happening, you're becoming conditioned. And that is what has happened to all of us. I don't know if you agree with me. But in schools, we were told that you have to be a good boy, you have to finish your homework, you have to be back by home. If you're a girl, you can't stay out after 7 o'clock. These are all conditioning. And these conditioning, what does it do for children? It restricts their creative ability, their ability to work and develop something which is coming out from their own heart. It kind of conditions it and puts it into boxes. So you don't really see the child. Now, you might argue with me saying that does that mean that we allow our children to do whatever they want? Can they go on the road and dance? Can they go, walk on the streets without any clothes on? No, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is wherever you can give them in a controlled environment certain outcomes and objectives which they are not necessarily used to on a daily basis, then you will slowly see the character of your child, of the student that you teach. And we have so many programs. That's why we have all these these programs. And for example, in class 9, the children go out for the geomorphology lesson and we take them on treks, go to a mountain or we take them to some volcanic area, we show them, we take them into caves and show them where the coals have been mined. If you have the possibility of taking them deep underground diamond mines, and it can be pretty scary. For those who are claustrophobic, it's not easy to go, 100 to 100 meters under the ground. And you have nothing. It's black. One of the most scariest things I never experienced, yeah, probably I have when you scuba dive in the night. Everything is black around you and you're under so much of pressure, you do feel it. So if you take the children through these programs, then I can assure you they will be absolutely calm, cool, collected under extreme stress, whatever they might experience later on in life, psychologically as well as physiologically. Should they join some of the commandos, for example, the National Defense Academy and the IMA and all that, they will be able to handle it without a problem because they already have that experience of being put under pressure, under controlled conditions. And they've experienced it as young children. So Waldorf has that right through class 9, class 10, class 11, class 12, all kinds of programs where children are put now. Devesh, we were talking about, in fact, Hardik and me and Devesh, some of you all heard about the Ironman. You swim, I think, 4 kilometers, you run 180 kilometers, and you you cycle 180 kilometers and you run, I think, 40 kilometers, all within a specified period. And it's normally within a day. So that's tough, right? It's not easy. But if you condition your children right from the beginning to be physically fit and psychologically fit through the comfort level that they have gained in kindergarten as well as in primary schools and all these programs that I've been talking about, I don't think it's impossible for them to do it. The human body is far more capable than what we give it credit for. We, in modern times, we've restricted our physical movements so much that in future I don't think you will even probably move your hands to get something to eat. There'll be a robo which comes in using your teeth. Maybe somebody will be running and doing all your cleaning. You will not be moving around and it's not good for the psychology and physiology of the human. Anyway, so I want to ask you all, what is it that I've given you a kind of a broad outline as to what we do with the children in grade 9. So the grade 9 curriculum will follow from that perspective of polarities, light and dark. For example, if Aparna is there, so you would then, in art, you would do something like charcoal paint, white and black, extreme polarities. In physics, you would probably do experiments where extreme pressure and low pressure are simultaneously shown, which is basically vacuum and high pressure, in the steam engines lesson that we do in physics. In the languages, you can take them into extreme dramas, the tragedies of maybe Shakespeare or the Indian ones also you have. I think there are so many epics you can get the children to do where a lot of extreme polarities of emotions are shown. And the drama teacher, whoever it is, who's the drama teacher here? Uh,
For now, art movement drama.
Okay, so movement and drama. Those kind of plays can be enacted by the children under the guidance of the teachers. If you have, let's say, mathematics, then what do we do in class 9? Let me just take you to do descriptive geometry, which is a very niche main lesson in mathematics, which is something which I think Shivani, all the engineers, who are the engineers? Shivani, yeah, Anurag and Vikas will know. It's mechanical drawing. So you take any section, chop it at an angle, and then you draw all the side view, top view.
You did a part of it in the carpentry.
Yeah, you did a part of it. That's a good point. Just stay with that thought. Remind me if I don't come back to it. So, uh, what happens basically is that you are getting the children to imagine, stretch their imagination to such an extent that they have to visualize objects from different perspectives, maybe 30 degrees from the vertical you slice an apple. Then how do you look? Where is the core? How do you draw it? How do you draw the image of that particular apple when looking at it, like from the top view? How do you draw it when looking at it maybe at an angle 16 degrees from the horizontal? How will that be? shape change. And these are not easy. I can tell you I hated the subject. But I don't know, some of you all might have enjoyed it. I did it mechanically. I just learned the mechanical processes, how to draw the line and then bring it and then drop this and then connect it up and get a reasonable mark in mechanical drawing. Chalo pass ho gaya, ya thoda distinction aa gaya, everybody is happy, I'm happy. But did I truly understand what I was doing? No. Whereas in world of education, this becomes a part of the mathematics lesson in grade 9. And the children experience this not just from the geometrical perspective, not just from the imagination, they also experience it when you do carpentry work. So if you have a, let's say a simple joint, okay, and you want to design that joint, you have to be able to draw that joint before you make anything. You need to have a drawing, right? Supposing I say make a car, you say how big is the car, what is the shape of the car, how does it look from the left, the right, the top, the side, and all that. How do you, if you cut the car in half, how do you imagine it? Because I have to tell the people who are machining how to make each of those individual parts that will be assembled into the full car. I have to make those drawings. So how do I then do it? So I make a drawing and then I do what Shivani just said. In your carpentry lessons, you actually create that object. Whatever you've drawn, create that object and then look at it. Oh, this is why my side view is like this. This is how the top view is when you actually do it. So you're now integrating your practical ability to make a product with the thought processes that went behind making that product, and then you're connecting up the two. So you're giving them hand skills. You're also giving them thinking skills and giving them the connection between the two. And then they begin to see, oh, this is why descriptive geometry is so good. So if somebody had given this kind of a work to me in engineering, I might have found it far more interesting rather than my professor standing and saying this is a section here, this is the nut, this is the bolt, I've cut it, now draw it. But if they had said that after cutting it, after we make it, now we are going to the machine shop and we are going to create that, and then we are going to actually cut it and I'm going to give it to you in your hand, maybe I would have been more interested. So that's what we give to children, the connection between the artistic, the intellectual as well as the practical. They all come together in a nice form in all the lessons that have been given to you. So I want to ask you all a question, and that's why I gave you some papers. It will also become useful for you again in a moment. I want you to write what is it that you really see as very important. So there are two parts in education. One is the outer skills, right? The outer skills, what do I mean? Numeracy, mathematics, language, literacy, then movement, physical ability and movement, coordination, etc. Games, sports abilities, playing cricket or hockey or whatever it is. So all these things we see as outer skills. What do we parallelly see as inner skills? What do I mean by inner skills? It's the character of the person. What does he value in life? How does he exhibit those values? And what are those characteristics that you would like your children to have on both sides, the inner learning and the outer learning? So put those down on paper, give you about 2 minutes, and then we can have another conversation and I see if they kind of match with what I have briefly put here as some notes for you all.